Hello guys, it's Chillnaga here again today. Wanted to talk to you about what I consider the video game identity spurred on by what Hideo Kojima has said in the recent days. Somewhat recent. Actually had a draft of this up earlier, but due to software problems, it was kind of, on fire and I had to redo it. So, a little while ago, Hideo Kojima, a professional in the video game industry and well respected by many of his peers and a lot of his customers, that includes me, has said something that I feel I should address with some thoughts and some input. In an interview with BBC, Kojima has been said to claim that video games and movies won't have a future unless they find a way to integrate together. I take several offences at this comment, as it seems to come from a very curious place, and I don't think it matches with reality, basically. Now, Kojima himself has been very fond of long movie-like cutscenes in his video games. Some consider it a chore to sit through, some don't mind, and some enjoy it, but it's clear that this is a tiny bit of a bias on his part, given his past creating massive generation-spanning video game narratives that often confuse everyone involved. I love Metal Gear, though, even if it makes my head spin. The problem is, video games are huge, like, really huge. Like, it earns more money than movies globally huge. It's overtaken the music industry and the movie industry and continues to earn staggering amounts of cash per year, with growth projected for the next few years. Of course, this wasn't always the case, but currently it is. And the future of it looks somewhat bright as well, so of course one has to struggle to find a proper reason why Kojima might have speculated that he thinks movies and games need to merge. To wit, a movie is nothing but a straight experience. You sit and you look and you listen, and, your involvement begins and ends at receiving input, with the possible extension of thinking about in-movie implications and plots and whatever. The video game, however, is always an interactive experience. It speaks to its player, it asks for input, it provides feedback. You get anything from hit noises, leveling up fanfare, the sound of a gun shooting, the voice of a character about to suffer a tragic fate. This all exists in movies, of course, but video games often take special care into making you the person. They want to make you feel like the one that is the driving force, the main character, that your choices matter, and that you are the engine of all of this. Especially if there are consequences. Video games love making you think there are consequences to whatever you're doing. It is a vastly different and, to me, superior experience to engage with the video game than it is to engage with the movie. On a personal level, I'm a bit jaded about movies since Hollywood seems to be desperately flailing right now with very few good movies out there, but some amazing ones in recent memory. So, Guardians of the Galaxy isn't as recent as as is properly the word, but I was absolutely blown away by the writing and I loved it. Deadpool, poor Ryan Reynolds, he has to fight tooth and nail to get his goddamn movie made, and it turns out to be a funny, entertaining, low, highbrow, alternating little romp that we desperately needed. This is Hollywood. They fight against creativity and go based on marketing and focus testing and sequels and 3D. Oof. Right, okay, this isn't the actual point I'm trying to make, but it's important to mention these for later. Any one person can enjoy a movie almost on par with how any one person can find a video game they engage with. In particular, Nintendo's past offerings have been more child and family friendly, while the two main competitors offered more adult experiences. Xbox, for instance, stuck to shooters and sports games like Halo and FIFA, while PlayStation embraced action and adventure games with the healthy splotch of RPG and JRPG goodness. So you've got everything from Ratchet & Clank to Uncharted, some Tales of Series games, some Final Fantasy games. It really is a case of something for everyone. And while the price of entry for video gaming is much steeper, the veritable cornucopia of choice and quality that exists in the industry is staggering. Where a movie fresh in theaters will run you $10 to $25 depending on venue and seating, a games console will be $300-ish with an additional $10 to $60 each depending on game age and quality. However, not only is a movie non-interactive, they don't usually last longer than 3 hours. And yeah, there's exceptions to that rule, but a 3-hour movie is something of an epic, a rarity, and even those don't tend to approach 3 hours, but do break the 90-minute god barrier that has been in place for so long. A video game has the time and space to create more complex plots and characters, situations that are downright ludicrous on the movie screen, but translate well to its own medium. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing Jason Statham mid-air spin a car so a hook takes a bomb off the undercarriage, but I know how intensely stupid and implausible that is. I have less trouble believing that life force comes out of a planet to stop a hulking great meteor because it snugly fits with the themes and narratives in the world presented. I don't know if this makes sense to anyone else. But personal taste aside, yes, of course it was FF7 I was talking about, one of the iron pillars of gaming and a key part of gaming culture that will run you a bare minimum of 30 hours on your first playthrough. Now let's assume that it just came out, that it's new, and that today it costs $60 and you're getting at least 30 hours out of it. That means an average of about $2 per hour of entertainment. And the option of refund still exists, so if you're not satisfied with it or it doesn't work quite well or whatever, now you can just return it. Now compare that to a 3-hour movie, which are, let me remind you, exceedingly rare, and at a $10 price, which is the lower end of my bracket, but as I don't live in America, I don't know how representative $10 is. I'm guessing it's a fair price. I've actually neglected to do research on this, so outside of script, hands holding, going whoops. But anyway, compare that to a 3-hour movie at $10 each, and the possible, all the best possible qualities for this scenario, as I've written it, and you're still receiving 50% less value and with no interactivity. Now, I know movies can be shot off and enjoy experiences, dumb things to do with your brain when you just sit and you sort of take in the pretty colors and everything, but video games also have that. Primarily in the form of games like Dynasty Warriors, where you just smash buttons to take down entire armies with no effort, you know. Make no mistake, I'm not advocating for the cessation of games and movies that require no thought. They can often be the most fun things to do if you have, like, 20 minutes and you don't want to spend time thinking about plots, looking at loading screens, engaging in complex character interplay. You know, the takeaway from this is that dumb shit is good, sometimes. But that example up there was just Final Fantasy VII. RPGs and JRPGs in general tend to offer the best value in terms of playtime versus cost. So that's a little bit of my own bias. I absolutely adore those genres. But in particular, my current darling until April is Persona 4 Golden. This handheld update to the PS2 Classic has taken over 100 hours of my life and provided me with endless satisfaction so far. I have no doubt that I'll come back to it and replay it at some point again too. So that means I've already gotten less than $1 worth per hour of entertainment from it, because I've just put that much time into it that value-wise, it's well, sorry for the pun, but it's golden, isn't it? One of the big draws in video gaming for a long time has been Call of Duty and its ilk shooters. The modest, brainless fun of games like Doom and Quake have evolved with each iteration, Half-Life and Half-Life 2 being the first real story-driven games. They had new ideas and implementations. Half-Life 2 was exceptionally proud of offering quote-unquote cutscenes where you were told a story without the control being taken away from you. Characters just blocked doors so you could run around like an idiot, but you know, it was innovative in a lot of ways. So this took shooters to a new level in storytelling terms. Yet, these experiences don't really hold a candle in gameplay length to other games and genres. I just googled Half-Life 2 on the howlongtobeat.com website, and I'm glancing at an average main story playthrough length of 13 hours. Now that, by shooter standards, is actually quite meaty. I went over to Call of Duty 4 after this, and, you know, it's a critical darling in the age of modern shooters that started the age of modern shooters. When we're tired of World War II era things, that is nearly half the length at 7 hours, and yet people love it for presenting itself the way it does, and that's alright, because Call of Duty is a short, sweet experience that stands on its own merits. It has great graphical presentation, set pieces, visceral gameplay, and of course the big shocker that we're all tired of now, approximately 10 years later. But these things all helped it to stand out in its own time amongst peers and like-minded products. A recently emerging PC game trend is actually made up of free-to-play MOBA games like Dota and LOL. LOL. League of Legends. The other two sound horrible. There's either small or no cost to entry with these types of games, and people put hundreds of hours into these games. Like, holy... I feel, for clarity's sake, that I should mention here that I have no interest in this genre, just so any perceived biases are made clear. I don't like them, I don't dislike them. Disregarding the infamously toxic player bases, though, and focusing on the actual games, they have some of the most ludicrous playtime per player on many Steam libraries I have ever seen. A friend of mine who put maybe 500 hours combined total into about 72 of his games has over 900 hours logged on League of Legends. I blew my brain a little bit. 900 hours, that's some commitment for you. And if you look at the value that represents, whether it's $60 or whether it's free, you are seriously getting good value for that. If you think after 900 hours that it's still fun and worth your time, that it keeps you engaged, something about that is right as a product. With the advent of refunds on Steam for games played less than 2 hours and within the last 14 days of purchase, this is important. This means that users are more confident in making a purchase. This extends to stuff like DLCs and add-ons and whatever too. So if the game does not meet expectations, like say it runs funny on your machine that should handle it, or it's just not your thing, you can have a refund and pool that money into something else that's possibly a more suitable experience. You're no longer committed to shady reviews that still exist that say, oh, the $60 game is totally worth it, by the way, they don't sponsor us at all, wink wink. No. Now, none of that. You can pay $60, but if it's a piece of crap, you can return it within 2 hours. This is only Steam, obviously, but still. And you can then plug on knowing the company's done something naughty or released the game horribly, and you can actually put that $60 towards a new game or several new games, It's very important for customer trust, customer confidence to have this option. It's a necessary and big step for Valve, and I'm glad that they've implemented it a while back, because honestly it was so long overdue. Now, moving on to a specific example about Kojima's idea to merge games with movies, Quantum Break, in this instance, tried to add movie-quality scenes to the game, but it resulted in an odd experience for most people with vastly increased game size as a result. The idea had to be tried, absolutely, but it merely resulted in larger installations and contributed very little to actual, gameplay. The scenes were done by actual human actors and lasted quite a while, but that meant players either had to skip them and remain engaged, or not grow bored, and skip out on content that they actually did pay for, or they had to sit there for, my quick googling at this point is accurate, up to 20 minutes not playing a video game. I understand that Remedy Entertainment was trying to do something new, and they should be commended for that. New and brave. Pioneer on, absolutely, but I look at this and I think it undermines the core experience of video gaming to be so drastically ripped from your medium for such a long time. Like, they're not asking you to perform a small intermediary or add cutscenes to the movies that are movie quality scenes that make it play out differently. It's a hearty investment of your attention and your non-engagement in an interactive medium. But all these aforementioned changes, updates, evolutions to games and services and policies, everything has helped the video game industry grow and grow and grow and grow, and they continue to expand and innovate every now and then. To this day, there's going to be more things in the market as a product, as a service. It's still in that wonderfully lively, booming period of its life. Now, the movie industry, in my eyes, has failed to do so for the most part. There have been no real innovations. I haven't followed the movie industry as religiously as I have followed gaming, but I do not remember actual innovation happening. I know that they tried higher FPS cameras for movies like The Hobbit, and I personally enjoyed those, but a lot of the critics and moviegoers have had the feedback that, oh, it's just a bit weird and unrealistic or whatever. And that seems like an innovation that they tried that might not go anywhere because people aren't yet used to having higher frame rates. 24 is passable, but there is better. The absolute butter smooth flow of 60 frames per second is something you have to behold to appreciate correctly. And I can appreciate how hard it must be to get that on a movie properly, with all the effects and God knows what, but it is certainly something to strive for, because the simple elegance of something as simple as fluid movement is not to be understated. But going back to my little movie rant here, I am not happy that the only other innovation they seem to be doing is falling back to ugly 3D gimmicks like 20 years ago. You remember that, do you? It might have evolved a little bit, but people are still treating it like the red-headed stepchild that just gave you a macaroni drawing and you have to sort of smile and think, yeah, okay, enough of that, please. I look at the movie industry and all I keep hearing is how busy they are suing people for piracy, for not piracy, for perceived copyright infringements, stifling creativity amongst directors and writers, delivering samey, often uninteresting movies. That's a lot of my interest, is because all of it just looks the same. Oh, a hero with a dark past out for redemption and revenge, and leave me alone, please. That doesn't interest me. You know, good movies that I've seen recently, I've seen the new Star Wars movie, the first of the new Star Wars batch, I should say, so not Rogue One, but the previous one. I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy. It was brilliant. I was absolutely floored by the movie. And even though I've only recently seen it, it's not a new movie, but How to Train Your Dragon 2 is simply one of the best things I have ever seen. I stood up at the end of the movie, and the first thing I said was, however many awards this has won, it's not enough. Because it is simply, you know, as delightfully close to perfect as you can get. It was ludicrous how good that movie was. Wheeling back a little bit, however, at the very least, the movie industry can safely be said to not be innovative. But arguably, there's little left to innovate. What are you going to do? You had mono, you had stereo, you had 3D, you had surround sound. I don't know what you could do, but it is safe to say the movie industry has ignored the rising giant of video gaming, possibly due to complacency, possibly due to other factors. Video games have surged ahead with such ferocity that it's actually quite wonderful to behold. Now, I believe my views on Hollywood to be based on observation rather than prejudices or biases, but once again, it must be said what my thought processes are, so you're given a clearer picture and a way to sort of assess what I'm saying, whether or not you think I'm biased or not. I don't want to give anyone the wrong idea. That's Hollywood's job. Hey, sorry. With the advent of VR, though, the possibilities have slammed open for many industries. Video gaming can actually incorporate you into the head of protagonists, to make you, the player, personally terrified and afraid. Little touches like a sound behind you will actually be behind you and you can turn your head, but there will be nothing there. Gunge will drip down on your virtual player's face and you're left wondering what that is. That sort of thing. It has a potential to engage you on a surreal, new level and indeed scale. But, you know, this isn't a video game only thing. Movie industry also seeks to benefit from incorporating VR if it is something that they could be doing. I have absolutely no idea how they would even begin, but despite how the industry itself is, I know that some talented creative people work in it, and there's definitely that possibility of incorporating VR into a movie experience. The problem with this is that VR has been known to cause motion sickness in a lot of people, and should you receive a perceived attack in a game or a movie that is a little bit too well done, customers and players will keel over in shocks and heart attacks, and you really don't want that. You want to do well enough that you convey an authentic experience, but sending people to the movies, I don't think has been done since Exorcist 1, where people were just so terrified in the 50s or whatever that they had to call proper ambulances because little old ladies were, not doing so well. I don't know if I got all of what I across, all of what I meant to get across, sorry, but it is for these reasons that I believe the video games industry, which now eclipses movies, let me remind you, doesn't in fact need any sort of merger to stay alive. For me, video games represent bigger, more complex stories that I get some sort of active participation in, whether it's just pointing and shooting big bad guy enemy soldiers, or I made a typo, sorry, or solving a mysterious murder spree in a small town. The sheer engagement offered by the medium will keep it strong and healthy for quite a while to come. I just don't see that video games will start to burn out, other than for this exact reason. You know, it's unfathomable to me. There might be other issues that will kill the fire in a little bit over time, but I don't believe the necessity of merger is one of those things. Thank you for spending these 20 minutes with me. I have been Chillnaga. This has been a blatant opinion. I wish you all a happy day.